Welcome to Seekonk Speedway's 75 Seasons of Speed podcast. This is a walk back in time with a few of our favorites celebrating the history of racing at Seekonk Speedway. Hello everybody, welcome back to another episode of 75 Years of Speed, a walk back through the history of the action track of the East, Seekonk Speedway. And today's guest, none other than two-time Pro Stock champion and current race director here at Seekonk Speedway, Mr. Len Ellis. Lenny, thank you for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me. Pleasure.
Well, first things first, let's get started with your beginning in racing. What got you into racing in the first place?
Well, long family history. My grandfather raced, my father raced, I've raced, now my son's racing. So it's just kind of like started going to the races when I was a baby and got away from it for a little while, and then I got involved, and everybody said that you had to be crazy to race, so I kind of like dragged my feet because I always thought I was smart, so I didn't want to sit over there and say, well, I know I'm not crazy, so I'll never be a good racer. So, you know, it took me a while to figure it out.
You say you'd never be a good racer, but as you progressed through the years, you got better and better. The biggest thing I remember about you was your consistency. What was the biggest thing, your mindset going to the track each week to get you that consistency?
Well, the biggest thing with me is that I never really had any money. I've had sponsors, and I was very grateful for it. I always consider myself the luckiest person in the world because I had people come up and give me $100 at a time just to buy a tire. I mean, this is people's hard-earned money. This isn't like a corporate world. I mean, don't get me wrong. I had some good sponsors too, and they spent more than the $100. That's for sure. But that's how I got started. Is that I got in and the consistency, where the consistency started was I knew that if I was running 13th and I had a chance for 12th, but I might tear up my right front tire or whatever, I stayed in 13th and I wouldn't knock a guy out of the way for a spot. My big thing was passing people on the outside or on the, clean, not roughing them up, not tapping them. This racing today is totally different than how I always raced,
Did you ever have that moment behind the wheel where you did get a little over-aggressive because of something that happened a few laps ago or 2 weeks ago or anything like that?
Oh, yeah, funny story. So Ricky Martin and I were big adversaries for a long time. He was always the star, but he was the black sheep. And I really admired him. I wish I could run that guy could run faster sideways than most people can run straight. So he kind of, in my opinion, took advantage of me a few too many times. And one time I just lost it. And man, I just power drived him. And he goes, "What did you do that for?" I said, "I'm just giving you some back. Paid you back. That's all." So, but I mean, we're great friends. And he, along with me and a lot of the older time people, the thing that I can't put on to the younger guys enough is that we form relationships and memories along the way. And some of them are good, or some of them bad. But, when you get to be like myself, 67, soon to be 68, I have a lot of great memories of racing and a lot of great memories of the the togetherness, the helping people out. You might sit there and rough a guy up or something and get into an accident one week, and before you even get home, he's calling you to find out, hey, do you need this? Do you need that? Today, that some of these kids, I feel bad, but they don't have that. They're so driven. They all think they're going to go and be the next Jeff Gordon, and they're not just enjoying themselves. Competition's competition. So we're not over there racing for participation. We're racing because it's competition. That's why it's the best track. Seekonk's the best. It's just quarter mile, and if you aren't working it and trying to figure out how to pass the guy, you're not doing your job.
Looking back at your racing career behind the wheel, what's the most exciting thing that stands out to you? Or whether it's a race, whether it's behind the scenes in the pits, hanging around the car, just having a couple of cold ones after the race. What's the biggest memory that sticks out with you?
Well, I have two of the biggest memories, and a lot of people always sit there and they want to win a race. They want to do this, and I want to do that. But my goal from day one was always to win a championship. And I raced there. I started when I was 21, and I think I won my first championship at 44 or 45 in 1997. And that was by far, I mean, I won the Charlotte qualifier. I won some other races that were big, but to me, that was the pinnacle of everything I tried. And I'm pretty sure, going back, I'm not a great memory thing, but I'm pretty sure that it was Ricky that I beat in 1997, and by like 4 points or something. So it was huge. And, you know, it was just like the culmination of everything. You try, you work all the time. You, like you say, you try to be consistent. It's, as a champion, it's to be consistent. It's like, I'm not into this racing now where you do it and then you go race for the one race. I mean, what kind of a champion is that? That's like, you know, you get to go there and have like a reset button. It's almost like you're playing on a computer because you have a couple of bad races. You have to be consistent to win a championship at Seekonk. None of this, you know, hey, I won the last race, so I won the championship. That's old time guy like myself. I don't believe in that, you know.
And what was the other moment? You said you had 2 of them.
The second one was the championship in 2001 when we got to go down to when we won it. It was NASCAR, so we got to go down to Florida. No, I'm trying to think of where it was. Yeah, it was Florida. And when I went on stage to receive my trophy and my award, I thought I was Dale Earnhardt for a day. This thing was so huge, and all the cameras and the full length, you know, like they do nowadays with showing you getting the presentation, the awards and stuff. It was unbelievable. That was, if anybody could win the championship at Seekonk Speedway, or now the biggest other thing is Rookie of the Year. Because Rookie of the Year, now I'm talking Pro Stocks, okay? So in Rookie of the Year Pro Stocks, you either want to be the champion or Rookie of the Year at Seekonk, because Rookie of the Year gets to go down to North Carolina and go on stage and receive your award. So you either want to win the championship or you want to win the Rookie of the Year. Those two things right now are the highlight. And those people, if they go down there, you ask anybody that's gone down there. Now, Dave Dolan's been down there so many times, it's old hat. But the first time you ever go down there, it's just unbelievable. It's right up there with the birth of your kids.
Now, we talked about the highlights. What's the biggest disappointment you've had in your career?
I really haven't had many disappointments. I mean, there's been plenty of times when I've been in position, once again, I finished second in points quite a few times. I would say probably, coming up short to people working all year long. I mean, it's like same thing as, football or whatever. You got a team, you got a bunch of good guys, and you go over there and you put every week, you try to do it. You figure out your tires, you try to compete at the highest level you can, and come up a little short. That's probably the lowest of it. I mean, I've had some accidents and some other stuff, but for the most part, I would say my biggest thing is to come up short at trying to achieve the ultimate goal of what I was trying to set out to do,
Now, you've got a very outgoing personality, and as long as I can remember, you always have. Friendliness, helping the other guys out. Has racing changed that at all, or even for a short period of time, did it ever change who you were?
Actually, it made me who I am. When I was in high school and before I started racing, and even my beginning of my job when I first worked at Pearson Miller Volkswagen, I was like an introvert. I didn't talk. I know this sounds so foolish because I never shut up since, but I was so quiet because I always thought nobody wanted to. What do I have to offer anybody that they're going to listen to me? So I was kind of an introvert, and I tell the story now, and people sit there, yeah, sure, I was. But the problem is, once I started talking, I haven't shut up since.
Back in the mid-'90s, when you were racing, you were doing a talk show on, I think it was WSAR radio.
Yeah, Speed Talk, yeah.
What was that experience like for you?
Well, it's funny because Adrian, this is back to the thing about being so lucky. People had a lot more confidence in me than I did in myself. Like it started out to give just race results. And then it grew, and it kept on growing, and it kept on growing, and then people would call. I mean, I got so much. I'm just trying to think of. Had so much fun, and so we'd have an accident or a controversy during the week. People would call up and they'd start yelling, and I'd make them use the color of the car instead of the car number. We had so much fun doing that back because it was something that Adrian and whoever else dreamed it up. It was great. It was a way of venting. So when you went back the next week, you got to say your piece, but you weren't so mad at the guy because he got to say his thing. Now it's just, stuff you in the wall, and oh my God, it's like it's like it was like you got to have your piece and vent out, and it was great. I totally enjoyed it. I never thought I was going to be any good at it once again because I just didn't have any confidence in myself as far as like being able to do it. But when I started doing it, I had so much fun doing it. 99% of the time, that was one of the fun times. It was speed talk, and then we had a little thing where we got restaurants involved because they wanted to do it. They wanted to host it. So then they wanted feature winners. They gave them dinners to the feature winners. There was so many things back in them days that made it a lot of fun, and you became more friendly. Now I try to go around the pitch and talk to everybody like every week. I try to get there at one. As soon as the gates open, I'm trying to be there. I try to talk to people. I try to help them get their tires, their gas, whatever. I just want them to know that it's part. I'm there. I'm there, and I want to be a part of the fun. I know my job. I know what I got to do for race director, and it's not a fun job, but the rest of it is fun. Fun to me.
Now, you mentioned the race directing thing, and I've done a little bit of that myself on the Fridays, and I know how difficult that job can be.
Yeah.
Not only while you're doing it or that night, but what you can feel is the ramifications after the fact. Have you had any, other than the job itself, has there been any backlash as far as off the racetrack?
Well, there's been some real, yes, I would definitely say there has been some stuff, and the first, but you got to understand, now I've done this twice. I did it in 2007, and then I did it last year, and I got, I helped out the track on a couple of races at the fall of the other year, so I kind of knew what I was doing it, but here's where I go a little bit, but I understand it's competition, so I understand that when they're yelling at me, this is how I get through it. They're not yelling at Len Ellis, the person. They're yelling at, or they're dissatisfied with, or I can't satisfy their things, Len Ellis, the race director. It's not Len Ellis, the person that, can't do enough for you or whatever else. I have, in some cases, I can't make them happy that night. And I understand that because I've been a competitor, and in most cases, if there's 4 divisions, there's only 4 happy people a night. And if you got 80 to 100 guys, you got about 90 of them that ain't happy, So, and my thought process a lot on what you're just saying about it is to try to be there, try to listen. And when they're yelling at me and whatever, I try not to take it personal, although I can honestly say I have on a couple of cases, especially in 2007, because people in 2007 that I thought were my friends that would never, ever harass me did. So it was a big learning experience. So when it happened and they asked me to do it, and I kind of didn't want to, and so this is my way, like Ricky says, this is my way of trying to get back to the sport. I try to do things that I think will help the sport. I think I have a pretty good understanding of what needs to be done to try to make it more fun, better for the fans, more affordable. A lot of the things that you can just overlook if you're just Joe Blow and only think of yourself. What you got to really do is think of the sport first. That's what you got to do, and then now you got to compete at the sport to your level.
Now, I want to switch gears for a second. I want to jump in the Wayback Machine. So when you first started competing and you drove into the pits for the first time, and I know you've been around the sport, as I have all my life. but I've never been a competitor, so I don't know that side of it. When you're driving through the pits for the first time with the hauler or going out onto the track, do you remember those moments, and does it bring back a smile?
I was so afraid when I first started, not afraid of getting hurt, not afraid of anything. I was so afraid of failure, of not being, because my youngest brother raced before I did. And when I went to sign in, the first time I signed in, the guy at the handicappers booth, and I will not bring out his name, says to me, "Why are you signing in? Your brother's such a better driver than you." And I go, "So I only raced one time." "Yeah, but your brother's better." So to start off that way, and my fear of failure or fear of my own, what I want to achieve out of it, which would be competitive. My thing was always to be competitive and run the top 5. And if I had a chance to win, I wanted to make sure I took advantage of my chance to win.
In '83, Anthony decided to go to add the SK modifieds to the equation. You took your turn that season running the SKs. How different are those modifieds to race versus the Pro Stocks?
I personally thought they were easier to drive than Pro Stocks. The tires are bigger, and the motor, we had 2 barrels on them. We had, restrictions and stuff. And I probably had, I feel as though I had a top 5, but I mean, the St. Angelo's certainly just dominated that to no end. And actually, one of my races I raced, that we ended up banging wheels and getting into a little chess session after in the pits was with Todd Bodine. He had a number 50 there, and I had my little 41, and we were grinding each other when I didn't think we should have been grinding each other. And that's when you realize that some guys will do anything to win. So, but I felt that those were easier to drive than the Pro Stocks. I think the Pro Stocks, you got to drive those cars. They do not drive themselves. And, these guys are so good at what they do. And even, the late models, the Seekonk's got the best racing around. Like sometimes people say to me, "Oh, well, they do this or they do that." Well, let me tell you something. The reason why some people don't come to Seekonk is because they can't hack it. And what I mean by that is the green light comes out and the racing starts and they want to win. They're not over here to, just ride around or whatever else. They're on the go. And that's why they call it the action track of the East. That's why it's a quarter mile. It's got a lot of room so that you can, maneuver. You're not so tight that it's 2 races and, you're squeezing somebody into the wall. There's plenty of room. And by far my favorite racetrack. I'm pro Seekonk. I love the track. I love the place. You're not going to get me to say anything bad about it. Nothing.
How was Anthony? You've had a little bit of dealing with Anthony as you were younger and going through the ranks. How was he to deal with?
Oh, that guy was crazy. He was way ahead of his time. He was unbelievable. I can remember the phone calls, middle of the night. Well, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? Then he was coming up with the kangaroo car, and I still I'm indebted to him for my whole career in racing. He came up with the Pro Stocks. He had the foresight to bring those things in and to do it. And I've been a Pro Stock guy through and through, full body fender. I mean, I love the late models and the Sportsman, which was the street stocks, and the trucks. They're all full bodied, so they're all racing hard and whatever. The modifieds, they have their open wheel has their thing. They have a good racing, but and I'm a big midget guy too. But the thing of it is that when you get to open wheels, you don't usually get as much a side by side racing as you do in that. Dealing with Anthony, he would. One thing I liked about him is he actually treated me like I had an opinion, and that was huge to me. That was the utmost compliment to me, like a respect factor that he gave me with that asked me a question for my opinion. That you couldn't have, as far as that, could have given me $500 or $5,000. It wouldn't have been as good as the compliment of just asking me my opinion.
When you got hurt in the late '90s and you stepped out of the car, Dick Houlihan jumped behind the wheel. How different From being a competitor all those years to just being a car owner, how difficult was that for you?
It was good. Just like with Dick when he drove for me the last 6, 8, 10 years, whatever it's been. I always found a great satisfaction on working and building and trying to make my piece of metal go faster than another person's piece of metal. And, that was kind of the stuff that you miss a little bit now versus the older stuff. It's still there. And you can still outwork them. I think Dave Dowland's beatable. You just got to concentrate. You gotta have resources too, and you gotta have a good driver. But Dave Dowland's beatable. Everybody there's beatable, and everybody there's had their time. Vinny dominated for a while. Freddie's dominated for a while. Ricky dominated. Norm Holden dominated for a while. It just happens to be Dave Dowland's time.
Talking about those guys, thinking back, who's the toughest competitor you race against? Now you raced against a lot of different drivers over the years. Some of the best super late model pro stock drivers that have ever raced. Who's your toughest competitor?
There was so many, it was unbelievable. Nowadays you got X amount, but you had Wayne Dion, you had Norm Holden, you had Ricky Martin, Chad Chase, Bobby Tripp dominated it. Everybody. I don't want to start naming people because I'm going to miss out on a few. And everybody had their time. What's his name? Dave Hutchins, Billy Manchester. Everybody that was a pro stock. I remember Ron Lauro and I bouncing each other off the wall for try to get a feature win at one point in time. It goes back. Kenny Boucher raced. I've been there so long. Bugsy, Dave Dion. Now there's a story there for you. The Dions. I can honestly say that today, whatever I've accomplished, I probably would accomplish half of what I did if I didn't befriend the whole Dion family and especially Roger Dion. Roger Dion taught me more and was there for me for a sounding board on stuff that I wanted to do and stuff as far as like being a supportive friend. That guy was the best.
Let's go back a few years, and we decided to create the Wall of Fame at the Speedway to honor some of the heroes over the 70 years at that point. You were one of the first inductees onto that Wall of Fame. How much does that mean to you?
Oh, huge. I'm just telling you, that was, I'm never going to go into the Racing Hall of Fame or whatever, so on and so forth. Certainly not for my aggressiveness or whatever. So to be picked over there, to be thought of well enough and to be put into that is, that's probably bigger than my championships, to be perfectly honest with you. That's the people voting. And like I said, I don't think there's any bigger, what do you want to call it? Thing to show how gratifying it is to it shows that all of the stuff that you've done all your life didn't go without notice. Somebody.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I'm just saying. I just think that was like the ultimate. Really, there was nothing bigger.
Do you have any regrets at all from your racing career?
Yeah, there's always regrets. The time I threw the helmet at Hudson Herbie after he told me all winter long he was going to wreck me, and then the first race he drove over me, and I got on the racetrack like an idiot and threw my helmet at him. There's been threats and different things. There's a lot of regrets, but I want to actually believe that that's just part of competition. It was stupid at the time, but it's certainly at that time I thought it was justified.
Other than the money that's involved in the sport now versus when you were starting out and most of your career, I know towards the end of the career the money really started creeping in. How much has the sport itself changed, for good and for bad?
Well, I think for the bad is you could go when it first started, but you have to understand it's the progress of everything. It's like we're eventually going to be Jetsons. We're going to be having a pill for dinner, and we're going to be riding around in air cars. It's progress. You know what I mean? But we don't go in outhouses for toilets anymore either. So you got. Technology has certainly come in, and I know people probably think I'm 67 and I don't know anything, but I mean, I feel as though there's a lot of stuff that I could still do in a legit thing. Now, what happens with the money is it gives you resources. And I'm a mechanic my whole life, so if you need to do a check engine light, you got to get a scan tool. Well, now if you want to run a pro stock and you want it to run bump stops, which you don't have to, you need a pull down setup, and you need a shock thing, and you need tools. And the problem is that there's less and less people that can afford or do this with that, and the guy that years ago that wanted to outwork you if you didn't have the money, he still could win races, and I proved it. I could win races and a championship. Nowadays, you don't sit there and have a guy that's going to sit there without some of the tools or the technology that's available and win championships. You might win a race or so on and so forth. That's why we've tried to take a cut back. The racing today, and I know there's going to be a lot of people that are going to say, I'm wrong, but the no bump stops was just a way to try to make it simpler to race. It was not to sit there and try to slow the 52 down or slow anybody down. It was just to sit over there and make it so on 2 nights a week and Saturday you could possibly, if you got lucky, you could win a race and you could be contending for the championship. Whereas now you go to any of the other racetracks, the first thing you drive in on, there's 5 what do you call those trucks that's got the top loaders, the trucks that just, the box trucks that you load your race car in, and so on and so forth. That's what you're racing against. So if you try to race against that, they got more stuff in that trailer than you have at your house and any place else. It's tough to beat. Even before it was at Thompson where it really took advantage of that. Now at Seekonk, it's filtering down. So you have to try to go and understand what you're trying to do. And I think Seekonk is one of the best places for it. They want Saturday night racing for the fans and for the competitors. And by doing Saturday night fans and doing it on a quarter-mile track, you don't need this big motor. If they didn't go, they went to Crate Motors, they go to tire management, to a tire rule. All this has been to try to help the competitors and make a good blend between the people that want to buy tires every week, they can't, and the guys that don't want to buy tires every week, they say, hey, if the tires have got 200 laps on them, but they all got 200 laps on them, now we'll see who the best driver is. So there's been things and changes that have tried to make it more affordable. I think I'm kind of getting off a little bit of the thing, but pro stocks, yeah, there's guys that have got $70,000 cars there or $100,000 cars. But you know what? There's a guy over there that right now that has probably $20,000 in his car and he won last year. So, it still can happen, even though this no bump stop thing has been huge and the tires has been huge. And when they went with Crate Motors was huge. All of these things have, in my opinion, were an attempt to make racing closer. Now, the cream is always going to come to the top, but you want the guy that runs 20th or 15th to be able to see the back of the pack or close in on the back of the pack. So now you're trying to, the process of trying to make the bump stops or to make rules, and won't just bump stops, rules. What you're trying to do is you're trying to move the middle of the pack closer to the front of the pack so that you have more competition, better racing, and like late models. I think the late models have got it figured out. They got that act thing. You got 5 guys half the time vying for the win every week. The same, they've got it figured out. They can really run hard, and you don't have quite 5 guys in the pro stocks to run every week, but to do that. But now with some guys that come back, so rule changes. You got guys like Kenny Spencer. You've got Colby Fournier coming back. You've got Ron Norback coming back. Hasn't raced for years. Bought the number 31, which used to be the number 35 pro stock. These guys, if they come back and they just understand what they're trying to do and get better every week, we're going to have we have like 27 pro stocks signed up this year. Hopefully we get out there and get to show that some of the stuff that we're doing is working, you know?
How much do you think, back in the late 90s, Francis and David came out with the youth racing Sierra division, the mini cups, and now they're running the Bandoleros. How much do you think that has been a big part of keeping Seekonk rolling and rolling?
Well, not only I think it's a big part, I don't think Seekonk Speedway, other than thrill shows, would have been surviving if they didn't create that Friday night. They got to stop and think about it. It's our minor league. It's even go back even further. It's like little league in baseball. These kids get to do it, and if the parents like it and the kids can do it and the family does it, I mean, there's nothing more rewarding to me now as the race director and a person that helps people than to watch a young kid, 7, 8, 9 years old, whatever the thing is, come in, and them eyes, when they open up that visor, and them big eyes are almost busting out of that visor. And I don't care if he was competitive or not, just the mere fact. I'll tell you right now, I still remember my son, the first time he got in a quarter midget and tried it out up at Thompson Little T, and he come in there, and here's a kid that had no interest in race cars, even though he's my son, none. And after he went to this quarter midget and mini cups, look at him now. He's working down at Penske for I mean, it's just, and you can go on and on. The Giffords are down there. Dusenberry's down there. I met what's his name there? I'm trying to think of the kid. He's a spotter now, and I met him down there. All these guys came from mini cups and pure bandoleros and stuff. It's unbelievable. It's the future of Seekonk's. No, not future of Seekonk's. It's the future of racing.
Well, as you mentioned the future, real quick before we wrap up, I've only been at Seekonk for a year, and the biggest role I've seen with you, Lenny, is your role with the Bandoleros, and seeing you go out on track and do the track walks with the kids. What does that sort of thing mean to you?
Well, like Rick says, it's giving back something to the sport. I love kids. I got 3 great kids, 4 great kids of my own, and I just, coming up, they got things that they want to do and can't do, but this is my favorite line. All kids are born equal and whatever else. It's the parents that either chew them up or turn them into turkeys or whatever else. So my job is to make sure that these kids all have an equal and fair shot at being able to do what they want to do, and that's what the big thing of it is. I love the kids. I think it's the biggest thing I can give back to the sport is to keep these kids wanting to come back and to be fair. And once again, this is not a participation sport. It's you're rewarded for doing good. And once again, you're trying to get the kid that goes over there that's never been in a golf cart or anything to the kid that's been at Little T since he was old enough to reach the pedals. And you got to somehow, some way, try to get these kids to not give up on the ones that are struggling and the ones that are dominating. You got to sit there and try to make sure that they're dominating because they got that talent and they're going by the rules and their parents are, going by the rules and so on and so forth. You got to make it fair and you got to make it entertaining and you got to make it rewarding for what these kids want to do. You got to keep their interest in it because the kids can't come by themselves. The parents have to bring them. So if you have a negative parent and a positive kid, you're still in trouble. You need positive parents along with positive kids,
Any final questions, Kevin?
No, actually, that's, I think that just about sums everything up. You could make the circle running.
Make me look smart, guys. Hey, thanks for everything. It's all about the kids and the sport, and we'll get over this, and hopefully we'll be back doing this and racing and participating and, making sure our family keeps growing. I do want to put out one little plug. I got a chance to read Irene Vandetti's the book, The Godfather, and I didn't read it all, but if anybody got a chance of that and saw how many families have been affected over the years by people that have participated at Seekonk, good, bad, or indifferent. If half of those people came back to Seekonk and just did it, we would probably fill the grandstands. It's amazing of the families that are noted in that book and the attention to detail that some of the people that I've even forgot about myself that I've competed against and that were a big part of the Seekonk Speedway. And once, too, Mrs. V and all the little notes that she used to send on my checks all the time. I miss that. You talk about something I miss the little stories and the little God blesses from Mrs. V at the end of my check all the time. I love those things.
Everybody did. I can guarantee you that.
Yeah.
Well, very well put. Thank you for joining us, Lenny. We appreciate your stories.
I think you guys are doing a great job. I really do. I got this. I don't know how many of these you've done, but I listened to Ricky Martin's, and that was outstanding. I hope to be half as good as his. I mean, he was outstanding.
I'm sure it'll be more than half as good, Lenny.
No, well, he's good for the sport. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Well, thank you for everyone for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and we'll talk to you when we see you next, Lenny, and everyone listening at home. Tune into the next episode. Thank you.
Yeah, God bless. Bye.